Thank you, Jimmy, today for opening with a joke, because today is going to be about being a little silly. So let me take a few minutes to tell you about my religion, because most people haven't met a real Rastafarian before. The Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster, or FSM, began in 2005 as a protest against teaching intelligent design in Kansas public schools. A physics grad student named Bobby Henderson wrote a letter to the school board saying, "If you're going to teach religion in science class, you should also include mine." And thus the Flying Spaghetti Monster was born, a divine being made of spaghetti and meatballs who created the universe after a particularly wild night of drinking. At first glance, it's absurd, but the satire is pointed. FSM is a mirror, right? It reflects how religions often get tangled up in dogma, power, and exclusion. Instead of commandments, we have, "I really wish you didn't." And instead of damnation, we have pirates. Instead of eternal judgment, we have a beer volcano and a stripper factory in heaven. Unless you prefer something else, okay, we're flexible. So you might have seen someone wearing a colander on her head in a driver's license photo, and that's us too. It's not because we think it brings us closer to God. It's because no one should be able to force you to prove what you believe by being more serious and more solemn than everybody else. So sacred doesn't have to mean grim. Now, here's a detail that most people don't know. We offer you a 30-day God-back guarantee. If you try Rastafarianism and it's not for you, we guarantee your old God will take you back. So no guilt, no pressure, no eternal damnation, just noodles. So, yes, just like the UU, we actually have beliefs. We may be the only religion I know that lists ending poverty as a sacred wish. From the "I'd really rather you didn't" as given in the Gospel of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. Number 6. I'd really rather you didn't build multi-million-dollar churches, temples, mosques, or shrines to my noodly goodness when the money could be better spent. Take your pick. A, ending poverty. B, curing diseases. Or C, living in peace, loving with passion, and lowering the cost of cable. And that's why I am here today. Because humor doesn't mean hollow. And irreverence is not the same as apathy. Rastafarianism believes in freedom over fear, compassion over conformity, and love over dogma. It's not for everyone, but it's real for me. And I believe it belongs in this conversation about love as an economy, because we've forgotten that the most sacred things are often the least profitable. And sometimes the goofiest religion is the one that says some of the most sensible things. So, now let me also tell you a little bit more about my own family history and why I didn't grow up trusting religion. My paternal grandparents met in Catholic school in China. They were both wealthy, young, and colonized. I mean, this wasn't a soft kind of influence. It was a deliberate transformation of Chinese families, of language, of values, and of spiritual imagination. The Catholic Church offered them status, education, and salvation, but at the cost of replacing what they had known. In one short generation, China went from a country where it was normal for men to have multiple wives to an expectation of one man to one woman as the only normal family. And so I grew up with a deep fear of religion's power to colonize, to tell you that your own gods, your own ancestors, your own rhythms of life are wrong, that you must be saved from yourself. And I saw how religion could be used to erase or to shame to conquer, and then dress it all up in robes and ceremony. I was a child who learned to watch the way that faith could divide people or be used as a weapon, and I still carry that watchfulness. And that's why, Pastafarianism felt kind of like coming home. It offered me a religion where the power structures were upside down, where we are reminded not to take ourselves too seriously, and where the only real commandment is to care for each other. It was funny, and it was safe, and it made room for someone like me with a complicated story and a deep resistance to being told what to believe. So I was baptized as a baby and raised in the Christian tradition. I went to Sunday school like many kids. I memorized the stories, I learned the rules, and by the time I was old enough, I was allowed to take communion, and I played piano in the little Chinese community church in Houston. But to be honest, as a young person, I found it all kind of boring and irrelevant. I mean, the rituals felt hollow to me. The sermons didn't speak to the world that I was trying to understand. I was told to believe things I hadn't chosen in a voice that left little room for doubt. So I left. But religion, like love, has a way of staying with you. And years later, as an adult, I started looking again, not out of obligation, but out of a genuine curiosity, especially after, all the life that I had, the experience I had. What did these great traditions actually say? And I focused in on one thing because I was activated into changing the world through Andrew Yang, the presidency, run for presidency, and that's who you see on our flyer. So I wanted to know, what do the holiest traditions say about money? And I was surprised. At the center of Christianity is not capitalism, not prosperity, not endless striving and work ethic, but this Lord's Prayer, how we were instructed to pray if there were a prayer that everyone should know. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Bread. Enough for today. Debt forgiveness. It's a radical kind of mutual mercy. And that's not just spiritual, that's economic justice. And then something truly shocking happened. On an Easter Sunday, the Pope, the actual Pope said it too, Pope Francis, in his Easter message during the height of the pandemic, spoke in favor of a universal basic income. He said, "This may be the time to consider a universal basic wage, which would ensure and concretely achieve the ideal, at once so human and so Christian, of no worker without rights." And I remember reading those words and thinking, wait a second, that sounds like something I believe. And that sounds like something the blind spaghetti monster would get behind too. When a man in white robes standing at the center of a 2,000-year-old institution comes out in favor of giving everyone enough to live, that's a moment of moral clarity. And it reminded me that no tradition is a monolith, that even within old, powerful, colonizing religions, there are voices crying out for daily bread, forgiveness, and love as a real economy. So when I studied the Bible with the Jehovah's Witnesses, I was looking for answers to a very specific question. What does the Bible actually say about money? And one story stood out to me, one you may have heard before. It's the moment when Jesus is asked whether it's lawful to pay taxes to Caesar. I mean, the way it's told, it was a trap question. If he says yes, he aligns himself with the Roman Empire, with colonizers and their brutality. And if he says no, he risks arrest for sedition. So instead of playing their game, Jesus asks for a coin. He says, "Whose image is on this coin?" And they answer, "Caesar's." And Jesus replies, "Well then render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and render unto God what is God's." And that moment is often quoted but rarely explored deeply because it's not just about taxes, of course. It's about sovereignty. It's about asking what belongs to Caesar and what doesn't. A coin bears Caesar's image. So fine, give it back to him. But we bear the image of God, and that means we do not belong to Caesar. Our bodies, our breath, our compassion, our time, our children, our capacity to love, these do not belong to the empire. They were never for sale. And Jesus' answer isn't just clever for its diplomacy, it's powerful because it shifts the frame completely. It asks us to stop confusing state power with sacred obligation. And if you follow that thread, it leads us right back to the gift economy, the love economy. And what belongs to God is not taxes. What belongs to God is care. What belongs to God is forgiveness. And what belongs to God is us, loving one another as if we matter. And if that's what belongs to God, then maybe ending poverty isn't a policy position. Maybe it's worship. So that moment with the coin, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's and unto God what is God's, draws a clear line between two worlds. One is the human economy, the economy of Caesar, the state, money, law. The other is the economy of God, the kingdom, the divine will. Your kingdom come. What would the rules be under that kingdom? It's the same contrast we hear in the Lord's Prayer. May thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So pause with me for a moment. What other names do these two economies go by? So the money, you might call that trade or the market economy. And the other one you might call the gift economy, love or even grace. And if we step back and ask a more basic question, what is an economy? Well, an economy is a way to apportion rare resources. And that's all it is. It's how a society decides who gets what, when, how, and why. So in Caesar's economy, we apportion resources through money, status, contracts, inheritance. Whoever pays or plays the system best wins. And if you can't pay, you go without. But in God's economy, the one Jesus is always pointing towards, we apportion resources through care, mercy, need, and relationship. Nobody earns the sunrise. Nobody purchases breath, and yet we are given both freely. So if an economy is just a way to apportion rare resources, let's look at how those two systems do that differently. Okay? There's the economy of trade, and then the economy of love. And they are built on entirely different assumptions. Okay? In the economy of trade, you give something, and you get something back immediately. There's no trust required, no relationship necessary. It works best between strangers. It's efficient when you have abundance. Like, if you have too many apples or eggs, you'd want to trade that. You can't use it all up, right? So let's trade that and get something. And money, it just speeds that process up. Money is a tool to make trade easier across time and space. But it has limits. I mean, money can be hoarded, and you can lose it. It can be counterfeited or even stolen. I mean, and trade tells us nothing about who needs what, who matters. So only who has what to offer right now. Okay? But if you contrast that with the economy of love, which is what I call the original economy, this system prioritizes human needs. It's moral in nature. It's about what's right, and not just what's profitable. It tracks your value through relationship, not transaction. It works over time, not just in the moment. You do something now, maybe somebody pays you back later. You're investing, you're taking your food and storing it in the belly of your friend, as somebody else. But it builds trust, memory, and mutual care. You don't give your baby milk and expect a sandwich in return. Right? You don't hold your friend while they cry and then ask for a receipt or something like that. And this system, what you're giving, is remembered by the community. It becomes your social capital, reputation, kinship. And here's the important part. That kind of value can't be stolen. It can't be laundered. It is held in people's hearts and not in bank accounts. So when Jesus says, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's and unto God what is God's, he's pointing to this deeper truth. Money is not the only economy. It's not even the first one. We lived for tens of thousands of years before we even minted coins or we wrote an IOU to somebody, but we've always cared for each other. We've always remembered who shows up. We've always carried each other's weight. That's the real wealth. That's the kingdom economy. And there's a song I sing that's been playing in my head, and thank you so much for singing that for me, for us. If I ever lose my faith in you. If I ever lose my faith in you, there'll be nothing more for me to do. Right? So the question it poses, I'm always thinking, without answering it for you, is who is this you? Right? What is the last thing that you still have faith in that you could never lose? If you lose that, what's going to happen? Everybody answers that differently, I think. Because some people think about that and hear the song as about God, and some hear it as about love. Or somebody might hear it as an actual person who kept them alive when the world fell apart. I thought a lot about that question. If I ever lose my faith in you, then who is you? And here's what I think now. So for me, you is love itself. Not sentimental love, not the romance or a Hallmark card type of love. I mean the real thing. The love that feeds the baby and forgives debts and holds each other through fear. The love that says, you don't owe me anything. I just couldn't bear to see you suffer. That is the economy I believe in. And I think we know it's real, not because of religion, but because of biology. I study biology at UC Berkeley, so that's where my mind always goes. And one of the most striking things you learn when you study humans as animals is this. No other species requires such intense, prolonged, self-sacrificing parental care as we do. A baby human is helpless for just so many years. We're not born ready. We're born needing. And so much of what we become comes from someone else who gives without keeping score. And that is the original economy. That is the source of my faith. And however flawed we are as a species, I still believe deeply that we are great parents. Not perfect, not always gentle, but capable of extraordinary care. So when I say I have faith in love as an economy, I mean this, that caregiving is not a side job, that generosity is not optional, that we were made to love each other into being. And the trade can come later, money can come later, but without that first gift, the gift of a body held, a need answered, a name remembered, there would be no human world. And maybe, just maybe, that's what belongs to God. Thank you so much for just hearing me out today.